The smell of burned metal and scorched flesh clung to the air inside the triage dome. The ground shook whenever artillery hammered the horizon, and dust rained from the fractured ceiling panels. Inside, there was no silence, only groans, frantic orders, and the sharp hiss of sterilizers struggling to keep pace with the flood of broken bodies. Dr. Ilara Wynne tightened her gloves and bent over the next patient, a human Marine with shrapnel buried deep in his thigh. She pressed a coagulant patch against the wound. "Hold still," she said, voice even despite the chaos. The soldier gritted his teeth. "Doc, is it bad?" "You'll walk. Maybe limp. But you'll walk." Her words steadied him, but before she could stitch, another stretcher was dragged in. The nurses hauling it froze when they realized who lay across it, a THRYNN warrior, armored, scales cracked and bleeding black across the chest. Gasps spread through the ward. "Not him," one nurse muttered. "Get him out." A Marine leaned on his rifle, scowling. "That's the enemy. We don't patch up lizards." Ilara's eyes snapped up. "He's bleeding out. If we push him back outside, he's dead in minutes." "That's war," the Marine shot back. Ilara straightened, hands slick with blood. "And I'm a nurse, not a soldier. My oath doesn't end at species lines." No one moved. The air thickened with judgment, but the THRYNN's breathing was already shallow, rattling in his throat. Ilara grabbed her kit and cut into his armor. The Marine swore and stalked away. A nurse whispered, "You'll catch hell for this." "Then I'll catch hell later," Ilara muttered. "Clamp." Her assistant handed the tool. Ilara worked fast, sealing ruptured vessels. The alien's physiology was different, but not unknowable: muscle, bone, arteries, all arranged in their own pattern. She'd studied enough xenobiology to improvise. The THRYNN's chest heaved once, then steadied under her hands. "Pulse is stabilizing," she said, relief threading her voice. The assistant blinked. "How did you even know where to cut?" "Because bodies, no matter how strange, want to live. You just have to listen." The words hadn't left her lips when the THRYNN soldier convulsed. Black fluid oozed from the wound, thicker than blood, carrying a sickly shimmer. "What is that?" the assistant whispered. Ilara leaned closer. It wasn't ordinary hemorrhage, the fluid spread across the bandages, eating through the fibers. The stench was chemical, wrong. "Contain it," she barked. She ripped open a sterile sheath, wrapping the wound. "Don't touch it there." Her assistant stumbled back. "It's burning the cloth." The alien gasped, eyelids fluttering. His eyes, slitted, gold, locked on hers for a moment. Panic mixed with something else, fear deeper than death. "Help," he croaked, the word broken but clear in human tongue. Ilara froze. This wasn't just battlefield injury. Something else was spreading inside him, faster than her instruments could trace. "Prep an isolation unit," she ordered. "Now." The assistant hesitated. "For him?" "Yes, for him." She shoved the stretcher forward herself. "Move." As they wheeled the alien deeper into the dome, the other soldiers shouted after her, "Traitor! Let him rot." But Ilara shut their voices out. She couldn't explain it yet, but her instincts screamed, this black rot wasn't a wound. It was a sickness. Inside isolation, she sealed the chamber. The monitors flickered to life, reading spikes across the alien's vitals. Heart erratic. Oxygen plummeting. Cells breaking down at terrifying speed. Ilara whispered, "This isn't normal." The soldier's breathing rasped, shallow. He reached toward her, claws shaking. "Spreads, all THRYNN, death." His arm fell limp. The monitor flatlined. Ilara stood still, gloves dripping. Not just a dying warrior. A dying warning. Her comm earpiece crackled. "Win. Another wave incoming. We need every medic in main ward." Ilara tore her gloves off, skin burning where the black fluid had splashed her wrist. She glanced down, red welts already blooming. Her stomach clenched. She scrubbed until her skin stung, but the marks stayed. Her pulse hammered. If this was contagious, the war wasn't their only enemy. Hours later, after the wounded slowed, Ilara sat alone in the Deccan chamber, staring at her wrist. The welts hadn't spread, but they hadn't faded either. Commander Arlen stepped in, arms folded. His uniform bore bloodstains, his face hard from years of command. "You treated a THRYNN," he said flatly. Ilara looked up, exhausted. "I treated a patient. He was the enemy. He was dying. And he died anyway. But not from his wounds." She hesitated, then added, "Something else killed him." Arlen's eyes narrowed. "Explain." She recounted the black fluid, the way it ate through cloth, the soldier's last words. Arlen shook his head. "You're speculating." "No. I saw it." He said, "It spreads. If this is a pathogen." "That's their problem," Arlen cut in. "Not ours." Her voice sharpened. "If it jumps species, it becomes everyone's problem." Arlen leaned closer, voice low. "Listen, Win. You're a good nurse, but don't let sympathy blind you. The THRYNN have slaughtered millions. If something's killing them now, maybe it's justice." Ilara met his gaze, steady. "And if it kills us next? Justice won't keep you breathing." For a moment, silence pressed between them. Then Arlen sighed. "File your report. But don't expect anyone upchained to care." He left, leaving the metallic door hissing shut. Ilara sat back, chest tight. She knew how command worked, no one wanted new complications. But the memory of the THRYNN's eyes wouldn't leave her. Not rage, not pride. Pure terror. She stared again at her wrist. The welts pulsed faintly, as if something alive burned beneath the skin. A whisper left her lips, "What are you?" The war outside thundered on, but in that quiet chamber, Ilara felt the weight of something larger than the battle. The enemy wasn't just across the lines. It might already be inside her. Before diving into the full 1,000-word write-up, they came for Ilara before dawn, when the dome light still pretended at night. The bulkhead slid open and a squad in obsidian armor filled the doorway, THRYNN on a guard, crests raised, slits glowing. Their leader spoke through a modulator that flattened the voice into iron. "Dr. Ilara Wynn. You will accompany us." Commander Arlen was already in the corridor, jaw set. "Absolutely not." The THRYNN captain turned his head. "Obstruction will end in casualties." Ilara stepped forward, pack already slung. "Where?" "To the throne world." "You are summoned." Arlen grabbed her sleeve. "You don't go anywhere with them." Ilara met his stare. "They are dying of something we don't understand. If I can find it, we all live longer." She pulled free. "If I'm not back in 72 hours, send what I recorded to every Zenand unit." Arlen's mouth thinned. "You think this is mercy? It's leverage." "Maybe," she said. "But leverage works both ways." They shackled her on the shuttle, polite, distant, efficient. The cabin air smelled like crushed mint and hot metal. Acceleration pressed her bones while the porthole showed Cardiff V shrinking to a scarred coin. The THRYNN captain sat opposite, weapons across his knees, eyes leaf blade green without the visor. "What do they call you?" Ilara asked. He hesitated. "Kareth. You brought in a soldier yesterday. He died. Whatever's killing your kind moves fast." His eyelids shuttered. "We know. How long has it been circling your ranks?" "Long enough to cull warriors, hatchlings, elders. Priests burn incense. Scientists burn labs." His gaze sharpened. "If you made this, human, we will salt your worlds with ash." Ilara held his eyes. "If humans built a plague that melts bandages, you wouldn't need me alive." Kareth exhaled, a sound like sand pouring. "The Queen will decide." The throne world rose like a coin of black pearl against stars, wrapped in a lattice of silver habitats and gun-gilded rings. As they descended, cities blossomed, spires like thorned spears, bridges cobwebbing obsidian canyons, rivers that ran cobalt under glass. The landing bay swallowed the shuttle with a pressurized sigh. Inside the palace, everything was angle and sheen. Soldiers lined the corridor, crests bowed, armor etched with stories of past wars. The air carried a scent that was not perfume, ozone and resin, like rain that had never fallen. They led Elara through an arch ribbed with living stone into a hall without shadow. The throne was a carved meteorite veined with lightning, and upon it sat Queen Zirath. She did not look like mercy. Her crown grew from her skull. Her eyes were lit with a patient storm. Armor flowed into a mantle of night feathers that shifted when she breathed. The hall quieted as if the universe were inhaling. "Human," she said, voice unmodulated, low and precise. "You tended my soldier. He died." Elara bowed her head but did not kneel. "He had no chance by the time I saw him." "Whatever's in your blood?" "Our blood is not diseased," a court scholar snapped from the dais. "It is sanctified." The queen raised 2 fingers. Silence dropped. "Your hands," Zirath said, "are said to be deft. Your ethics, inconvenient." She flicked her gaze to Elara's wrist. "You were marked. You scrubbed. It remains." Elara swallowed. The welts were faint now, a map of pale ridges. "Yes?" "Then we asked 2 questions," the queen continued. "Did your species craft this affliction? Can you unmake it?" "I didn't build it," Elara said. "I don't think humans did. The residue was like a self-feeding solvent, not natural, engineered. But the protein signatures on my instruments were not human. I need a lab. I need samples at different stages. I need permission to touch what you fear." Murmurs, sharp as knives. The scholar hissed, "Blasphemy." Zirath studied Elara, as though measuring weight and grain. "If you fail, you will die." "If I refuse, more of you die," Elara said. "I'm not here to ask for kindness. I want a bench, time, and to stop being treated like a weapon." A thin smile ghosted the queen's mouth, gone before it settled. "Weapons speak of choice when their triggers are held." She lifted a hand. "Give the human a lab." Karath stepped forward. "Majesty." "Captain," Zirath said without looking at him. "If this is human design, I will feed her to the core. If it is ours, I will still need her hands." They escorted Elara to a research wing that looked grown rather than built. Walls flexed to reveal panels, light swam through living glass. An array of instruments hummed to life at her touch, spectrometers, nanoculture arrays, autoclaves, everything precise and unnervingly beautiful. An attendant brought vials in frost-cold racks. Elara lifted one to the light. The fluid inside shimmered like oil on water. "Stages?" she asked. The attendant, a smaller THRYNN with pale scales and careful fingers, nodded. "Early, peak, terminal. Also, this." He lifted a sealed cube. Inside lay a child's mask, pitted and eaten along one edge. Elara's throat tightened. "Who wore it?" "My sister," he said. No expression. Just clean fact. Now she is Ash. "Your name?" "Rith." She met his eyes. "Stay with me. I'll need hands I can trust." Rith inclined his head. "You will need truth more." They began. She ran baselines, built exposure curves, mapped the solvent protein complex when it uncoiled like a hinge and latched onto new tissue. It wasn't merely dissolving, it was editing. A cascade unfolded, bind, cleave, replicate, move, faster in oxygen-rich environments, fastest in the presence of a specific metallic ion she didn't recognize. "Feed me your element tables," Elara said. Rith brought up a rotating lattice. There it was, vetrium, a metal the THRYNN used in ceremonial ink and battleplate. Abundant. Ubiquitous. The pathogen loved it. She stared at the model. "This thing is key to your culture." Ritha's crest lowered. "Engineered hate." Engineered bias, Ilara said. Hate is optional. An alarm cut through the lab, 3 notes, falling. Rith stiffened. Quarantine breach. Hatchery wing. Ilara grabbed a med case. Take me. Kareth met them at the corridor, visor down. You don't leave the lab. You need me where it's worst, Ilara said, already moving. Or you dragged me across half a galaxy to watch. They ran. The hatchery was a cathedral of heat and humidity. Incubators lined the walls like luminous eggs, pulsing gentle light. The smell was mineral sweet. And in the center, a knot of guards circled a small figure. A hatchling, no more than a meter tall, swayed on its feet. Black sheen leaked from its claws, threads pooling in patterns like spider silk, eating into the floor. A caretaker knelt nearby, hands raised, trying to soothe without touching. Back, a guard shouted as Ilara entered. Contagion. Ilara stepped straight into the circle. Seal the vents. Pull humidity down. Now. She dropped to a knee in front of the hatchling, keeping her hands visible, voice low. Hey there. I'm Ilara. Wide gold eyes flicked to her. The little one trembled, breath ragged. It hurts, the hatchling whispered, voice thin. I know. Ilara set the med case beside her, opened it with one finger. To the guards, you shoot that child and I walk out. Decide. Helmets creaked as the guards looked toward Kareth. His jaw flexed. He said nothing. They lowered weapons a fraction. Ilara slid a polymer barrier under the hatchling's palms. The black sheen beaded on its surface instead of soaking. Good, she murmured. It wants metal. It hates this. She drew a syringe from the kit, chelators, broad spectrum, a cocktail that would bind metals and start the cascade, at least for minutes. This will sting. The hatchling's crest fluttered. Promise? I don't make promises I can't keep, she said. I'll try. She injected. The child gasped, then steadied. The sheen slowed. Not stopped, but slowed. Rith, Ilara said. We need aerosolized barriers. Polymer nanomist. Vents running negative pressure. And find me catalytic inhibitors that prefer Vectrium. Rith was already typing, voice clipped and steady. On it. A shadow fell across them. Zirith had arrived without fanfare, guards parting like grass before a blade. She looked at the hatchling first, then at the glistening channels in the floor, then at Ilara's steady hands. What have you done? The Queen asked. Bought you 20 minutes, Ilara said. Maybe 30. The pathogen's tuned to your metal. It rides your ornaments, your walls, your blood ink. Strip it out and you live longer. We find a blocker that outcompetes Vectrium and you live, period. Can you make such a thing? Zirith's tone carried no plea, only demand. I can try. I'll need access to your material science, your mining logs, your ceremonial chemistries. And I'll need authority to break taboos without getting stabbed for it. A courtier hissed. No outsider will. Silence, the Queen said, not raising her voice. Ilara touched the hatchling's shoulder through the barrier. The child's breathing deepened, less frantic. This little one needs a clean room and a fever bed, she said. And someone to tell them a story. Zirith's eyes shifted, not softening exactly, but narrowing with something like focus. Captain Kareth. Majesty. Move the child. Give the human what she asks. Lock my priests and my generals out of her way. Kareth hesitated half a breath. As you command. The Queen looked down at Ilara. If you lie to me, I end your line. I don't have a line, Ilara said. I have a lab. For the first time, a hint of amusement touched Zirith's mouth. We will see which is stronger. They moved fast after that. Vents reversed. Humidity fell. The hatchling was carried, swaddled in barrier film, small hand gripping Ilara's sleeve through the polymer as if it could feel her pulse. Back in the lab, data flowed like weather. Rith threw models on the wall. Ilara lined up candidates, macrocyclic cages, tune nanosponges, adaptive gels. The pathogen's appetite was its weakness: lure it to a decoy, flood the blood with bait, bind until it can't move, then burn it out with heat a hair below lethal. In theory. Zeroth watched from the threshold, a statue given breath. Human, she said quietly, as Ilara calibrated the first trial. Why help us? Because bodies want to live, Ilara said, eyes on the readout. Because wars end. Because I was born with these hands and I'd rather they heal than bury. Your commander will call this treason. Probably. And still you stay. Ilara pressed the activator. The first sample met the decoy. The curve on the screen dipped, slow at first, then sharply, like a bird folding its wings. She let her breath out. I stay, she said, because I don't run from hard things. Wide gold eyes flicked to her. The little one trembled, breath ragged. It hurts, the hatchling whispered, voice thin. I know. Ilara set the med case beside her, opened it with one finger. To the guards, you shoot that child and I walk out. Decide. Helmets creaked as the guards looked toward Kareth. His jaw flexed. He said nothing. They lowered weapons a fraction. Ilara slid a polymer barrier under the hatchling's palms. The black sheen beaded on its surface instead of soaking. Good, she murmured. It wants metal. It hates this. She drew a syringe from the kit, chelators, broad spectrum, a cocktail that would bind metals and starve the cascade, at least for minutes. This will sting. The hatchling's crest fluttered. Promise? I don't make promises I can't keep, she said. I'll try. She injected. The child gasped, then steadied. The sheen slowed. Not stopped, but slowed. Riff, Ilara said. We need aerosolized barriers. Polymer nanomist. Vents running negative pressure. And find me catalytic inhibitors that prefer Vecrium. Riff was already typing, voice clicked and steady. On it. A shadow fell across them. Zeroth had arrived without fanfare, guards parting like grass before a blade. She looked at the hatchling first, then at the glistening channels in the floor, then at Ilara's steady hands. What have you done? The Queen asked. Bought you 20 minutes, Ilara said. Maybe 30. The pathogen's tuned to your metal. It rides your ornaments, your walls, your blood ink. Strip it out and you live longer. We find a blocker that outcompetes Vecrium and you live, period. Can you make such a thing? Zeroth's tone carried no plea, only demand. I can try. I'll need access to your material science, your mining logs, your ceremonial chemistries. And I'll need authority to break taboos without getting stabbed for it. A courtier hissed. No outsider will. Silence, the Queen said, not raising her voice. Ilara touched the hatchling's shoulder through the barrier. The child's breathing deepened, less frantic. This little one needs a clean room and a fever bed, she said. And someone to tell them a story. Zeroth's eyes shifted, not softening exactly, but narrowing with something like focus. Captain Kareth. Majesty. Move the child. Give the human what she asks. Lock my priests and my generals out of her way. Kareth hesitated half a breath. As you command. The Queen looked down at Ilara. If you lie to me, I end your line. I don't have a line, Ilara said. I have a lab. For the first time, a hint of amusement touched Zeroth's mouth. We will see which is stronger. They moved fast after that. Vents reversed. Humidity fell. The hatchling was carried, swaddled in barrier film, small hand gripping Ilara's sleeve through the polymer as if it could feel her pulse. Back in the lab, data flowed like weather. Ruth threw models on the wall. Ilara lined up candidates, macrocyclic cages, tune nanosponges, adaptive gels. The pathogen's appetite was its weakness: lure it to a decoy, flood the blood with bait, bind until it can't move, then burn it out with heat a hair below lethal. In theory. Zeroth watched from the threshold, a statue given breath. Human, she said quietly, as Ilara calibrated the first trial. Why help us? Because bodies want to live, Ilara said, eyes on the readout. Because wars end. Because I was born with these hands and I'd rather they heal than bury. Your commander will call this treason. Probably. And still you stay. Ilara pressed the activator. The first sample met the decoy. The curve on the screen dipped, slow at first, then sharply, like a bird folding its wings. She let her breath out. I stay, she said, because I don't run from hard things. Zirith held her gaze. Then do not run when I tell you this. If you succeed, I owe you a debt. If you fail, I will make your death and ending others fear. Good, Ilara said, almost smiling. Fear is a lousy teacher. But it listens. The curve hit 0. Ritha's crest flared in astonishment. It bound, he whispered. It bound. Ilara didn't celebrate. Bench test isn't blood, she said. Next is living tissue. Zirith straightened, all thunder again. Then we will begin with me. The lab went still. Ilara blinked. That's not required. It is, the Queen said. A ruler eats first from the new harvest. Or no one eats. Ilara weighed the offer. Risk and leverage braided together. She nodded once. Then sit, she said, and let me not miss. The Queen moved to the chair, mantle whispering, spine unbowed. Ilara prepped the line with hands that did not shake. Human, Zirith murmured as the needle touched skin. Do not disappoint me. Ilara met her eyes. I don't plan to. The trial dose slid into Queen Zirith's veins with a single, silent push of the plunger. Ilara kept her face composed, though her stomach twisted. Monitors displayed vitals in cascading green, every spike another reminder she was gambling with a sovereign's life. Rith watched from the console, crest lowered in tension. Binding markers are climbing. That's good. Too fast can be bad, Ilara murmured. She adjusted the drip rate. Balance is everything. The Queen sat unnervingly still, eyes fixed on Ilara's. You fear me collapsing. I fear missing something. Ilara set the syringe aside. Fear's a survival tool. Even yours. Minutes dragged. The pathogen's aggressive proteins, once spiking, dipped. Not eradicated, but slowed, restrained by the decoy molecules clinging to them. Ilara exhaled, finally. You're still breathing, she said. Ziritha's mouth curved. A low bar for success, human, yet one you clear. She stood, mantle rustling. Enough for today. Later, in the lab, Ilara reviewed results. Rith tapped data points onto the holo. It works for now. But the cascade adapts. Mutation probability is high. Then we stay ahead, Ilara said. Change the bait before it learns the trick. The door slid open. Captain Karath entered, posture stiff. The High Council demands audience with you both. Now. Ilara glanced at Rith. He looked away. What's this about? Politics, Karath said grimly. And survival. The council chamber was a circle of obsidian columns and high seats. Nobles in jeweled carapace armor glared down. Murmurs swelled when Ilara entered at the Queen's side. She felt their gazes like daggers. An elder councillor rose, scales lacquered in gold. Majesty, you bring an alien into the heart of our empire. You let her experiment on you. This is desecration. Ziritha's tone was even. It is survival. Another councillor barked, or weakness. The humans will claim credit for our cure, then leverage us. You gamble our sovereignty on one nurse's whim. Ilara stepped forward before she could stop herself. I didn't come here for your politics. Your soldiers are dying. Your children are dying. If you'd rather debate honor than save them, that's your choice. But I'm not wasting my time with speeches while bodies burn. Gasps echoed. Karath's hand twitched toward his blade. But Zirath raised her chin, studying Ilara as though she were testing glass for cracks. The elder hissed, "Do you dare speak unbidden?" "Yes," Ilara said, voice steady. "Because silence won't slow the plague." The queen lifted her hand. "Enough. Let them gnash. I will act." Her gaze swept the council. "We will pursue the cure. I bear the trial in my veins already." Shock rippled through the chamber. The councillors shifted, cowed but simmering. The elder finally bowed, stiff as stone. "As you will, Majesty. But should this fail?" "It will not," Zirath cut in. "Because failure is not an option." That night, Ilara returned to the lab exhausted. She scrubbed her hands raw, staring at her reflection in the sterile glass. The faint scars on her wrist still glowed faintly, a reminder she carried a trace of the disease. Rith brought her a ration packet. "You didn't eat." She accepted, chewing without tasting. "How long can I hold them off with one dose?" "Not long," he admitted. "But you bought belief. Sometimes belief keeps a throne steady." Ilara leaned back. "Belief isn't enough. Data is." 3 days later, resistance came from another front. A secure comm line from her own people crackled to life while she was calibrating assays. The screen showed Commander Arlen's face, haggard, uniform-stained. "Ilara," he said, voice tight. "What the hell are you doing?" She froze. "How did you get through? Spies leak more than we think." "Words out, you're helping the Queen. Do you understand what that looks like?" "I understand exactly what it looks like," she said. "And I don't care. If this plague spreads, you're treating enemies like patients. Our soldiers are asking if you switched sides." "I didn't switch sides," she snapped. "I chose life over tribal lines. If that makes me a traitor, so be it." Arlen's expression hardened. "Orders are clear, return immediately, or you'll face charges." The feed cut before she could answer. She lowered her head into her hands, fingers digging into her scalp. Ruth touched her elbow. "Your people want you back." "They want me silent," she said bitterly. Ours blurred into trials. Some worked briefly, others failed catastrophically. Once, a culture dish bubbled over, burning a hole in the lab floor. Guards sealed the wing, terrified the air itself was poisoned. Zirath arrived unannounced, eyes sharp. "You nearly destroyed my lab." "Your pathogen nearly destroyed your planet," Ilara shot back. "We're racing mutations here. You asked for miracles. Miracles aren't neat." The Queen stepped closer, close enough that Ilara could smell the ozone tang of her mantle. "You speak as if fear does not touch you." "Fear touches me every second," Ilara admitted. "But I keep moving anyway." Zirath's gaze lingered, unreadable. Then she turned. "Captain. Keep the human alive. She is mine until this ends." Later, Ilara collapsed on a bench, eyelids burning. Rith offered water. "She watches you," he said quietly. "She watches everyone," Ilara replied. "Not like this," he said. "The Queen does not let strangers speak truth to her face and live." Ilara swallowed, throat dry. "Then maybe I should be careful what truths I say." Rith tilted his head. "Or maybe you should say more. Sometimes empires shift not by armies, but by one voice heard at the right time." The next outbreak came without warning. This time in the palace barracks. Soldiers writhed, black fluid burning their armor, screams echoing down the stone halls. Ilara sprinted with her case. Guards parted reluctantly, some snarling at her presence. She dropped beside a soldier convulsing. "Get his armor off, fast." Kareth hesitated. "He's contaminated." "So am I," Ilara snapped. "Help me or watch him rot." They obeyed. She injected a second-generation compound into the soldier's vein. For a heartbeat, nothing. Then the spasms eased. The barracks went quiet, stunned. "It works," Kareth breathed. "Not forever," Ilara warned. But it buys time. The soldier blinked up at her, gold eyes dulled with exhaustion. Why, help me. Ilara pressed the empty syringe into a tray. Because you're breathing. Later, alone with Zirath, the queen spoke without her usual armor of words. You risk our wrath. You risk your own people's scorn. And still you fight for us. Ilara met her gaze. Because if this plague wins, it won't stop at your borders. For the first time, the queen's voice dropped to something almost human. You make me question whether strength lies only in the sword. Sometimes strength is refusing to let someone die, Ilara said softly. Zirath studied her a long moment, then turned away. Do not falter, human. For if you do, the galaxy falls with us. Ilara returned to the lab, heart pounding. For the first time since her capture, she believed it, this fight wasn't just the THRYNN's anymore. It was everyone's. And she was right at the center of it. The alarms blared across the palace like a war drum. Ilara sprinted through the corridors, medcase clutched tight, the echo of boots behind her. Rith kept pace, data slate glowing with grin numbers. Mutation rate had spiked again, the plague was outpacing their formulas. At the end of the corridor, the doors to the council chamber groaned open. Inside, chaos reigned. Generals shouted, nobles brandished threats, and a council elder who had scorned Ilara stood on a dais screaming that the human contagion was part of the sickness. Queen Zirath sat rigid on her throne, calm amid the storm. Her eyes tracked Ilara as though the rest of the chamber were shadows. Human, the elder roared, pointing a claw. Your cue weakens our warriors. This is sabotage? Ilara dropped her case on the dais, snapped it open, and held up a vial. The fluid shimmered faint blue. This is the third-generation inhibitor. It binds the cascade faster than anything we've tested. I've watched it hold soldiers alive for days, not hours. You can waste more time arguing, you can let me put it in your veins. The elder sneered. You dare. Zirath rose. The chamber fell silent. Her mantle spread like storm clouds. Enough. The human speaks truth. I carry the trial in me. I do not weaken. I sharpen. She turned to Ilara. Show them. Ilara didn't hesitate. She loaded the injector, crossed the floor, and pressed it against the queen's arm. The hiss of the seal echoed. Seconds ticked by. Then the monitors embedded in the throne lit with readouts, stable vitals, cascade suppressed. Gasps rippled through the chamber. Zirath lifted her chin. I live. The human delivers life. Any who call it treason may test the alternative. Silence thickened. Even the elder bowed his head, defeated. But the battle wasn't won. Hours later, word came, fleets massing at the border. Human commanders believed Ilara compromised, suspected she'd handed over technology. Warships had already crossed into THRYNN space. Ilara slammed her fist against the lab console. They'll burn everything before we prove anything. Ritha's crest flattened. If fleets clash, the cure dies with the bodies. Zirath entered, her expression unreadable. Your people march to destroy us. What will you do now, healer? Ilara met her gaze. Stand between them. The queen's eyes narrowed. That will kill you. Maybe. But if they fire first, none of this matters. Zirath studied her, then gave a sharp nod. Then we fly. The flagship was a blade of obsidian cutting through stars. Ilara stood on its bridge, heart pounding as human warships appeared on the display, sleek carriers, missile banks primed. A transmission cut in, Commander Arlen's face again. Ilara. Step away from them. Now. She shook her head. Arlen, listen. The pathogen isn't theirs. It's a weapon key to their biology. I've found a cure. If they fall, it spreads unchecked. We could be next. You're under their control. No. I'm under oath. You trained me to save lives, remember? That didn't stop at our borders. Arlen's jaw tightened. If you don't return, you leave us no choice. Ilara stepped forward until her face filled the comm. If you fire, you kill not just them, you kill the cure. You doom us all. For a long moment, silence. Then Arlen said, voice low, prove it. Show me. Ilara nodded to Riff. He transmitted the data package, charts, binders, trial results. It wasn't perfect. It was messy, desperate, but real. The bridge waited. Finally Arlen spoke, softer. You're still you, aren't you? Yes, Ilara said. And I'm asking you to trust that. The fleets held position, neither side firing. Ours bled into tense negotiation. Ilara mediated, carrying messages between admirals and the Queen, translating not just words but intent. Every phrase threatened to ignite war, yet slowly, grudgingly, the tension eased. In the quiet between transmissions, Zirith stood beside her. You risked everything. Why? Ilara answered without looking away from the stars. Because someone had to. The Queen's gaze lingered on her profile. In another age, I would have called you enemy. Now I call you necessity. Ilara almost smiled. High praise. Perhaps not high enough. The cure rolled out within weeks. Factories retooled to synthesize the decoy molecules, fleets distributed supplies. Soldiers recovered. Hatchlings woke from fever. The Black Plague slowed, then cracked, then stopped. Ilara watched the first hatchling she treated stumble into sunlight, eyes bright again. Ruth murmured, they'll tell this story for centuries. Not my story, Ilara said. Theirs? Yet she knew better. Whispers already followed her, the nurse who defied soldiers, who touched the Queen's veins, who stood between fleets and kept them from firing. On the day the truce was signed, the hall brimmed with banners of both species. Humans and THRYNN sat at one table, hands tense but steady. Zirith placed her seal beside the human ambassadors, then turned toward Ilara in full view of both delegations. One woman's hands held back death. Remember this, empires are not only defended by blades. Sometimes, by compassion. Applause swelled. Ilara's cheeks burned, but she bowed her head. Later, when the crowd had thinned, Zirith found her alone in the courtyard, where alien trees glowed with soft light. You changed us, the Queen said quietly. Ilara shook her head. I gave you time. You changed yourselves. Zirith stepped closer, mantle brushing the air. You made me see strength in places I had scorned. Even, in you. Ilara swallowed. Careful. That almost sounds like respect. Perhaps more. Zirith's eyes glimmered. But that is a truth for another night. Ilara smiled faintly. Then let's leave it at this one, you're still breathing. And that's enough. The Queen inclined her head. Enough for now. The war did not end overnight. Borders still bristled, old wounds lingered. But fleets stood down, and the plague faded into memory. And across both empires, one name spread, not general, not queen, not admiral, but nurse. Ilara Wynn. The woman whose hands had saved a species. And though she never asked for legend, she carried it quietly, knowing history would never forget.